Welcome to the Painting of the Week podcast, where we look at some of the most significant paintings throughout history. Introducing your hosts, Phil Grabsky and Laura Bentham.
Well, welcome to Painting of the Week. And I'm Phil.
And I'm Laura.
And today we're going to look at one of Laura's choices, which is a great choice. It's by Bert Morisot, and it's called Girl in a Boat with Geese from 1889. And I'm sure none of you need telling that Bert is a woman. B-E-R-T-H-E. But Laura tells me that Bert's parents kind of did this on purpose.
Well, I don't know now. I think I've made it up. I thought I had it right, and then you decided that you knew. I read somewhere that in her family the girls were called by male names.
Or names that could be male.
Yeah.
So Ed, is it Ed? No, Edma.
Edma.
Edma could be Ed.
Yeah.
If Ed was a French
and
male
then
name.
Yves as in Yves Laurent.
And Eve, yeah. But
I love the name Bert, by the way. I think it's a fabulous name, and I'd like to be called that. I think it's fabulous. It's quite trendy.
Bert. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, we'll come back to that.
So now I am very fond of Bert Morisot, and I've always made the point when talking about Impressionist painters in books and blogs and films, it's very easy to kind of default to say, oh, the Impressionists like Renoir, Degas, Monet. I always make sure I say, like Renoir, Degas, Monet, Morisot, because I think she's right up there with all of them. She is an Impressionist. She's not a female Impressionist or the woman Impressionist. She's just an Impressionist like the others. And I think rather unfairly overlooked at times, perhaps because of her gender.
Do you think also because she died quite young?
And
so therefore maybe didn't do so many more paintings.
She's quite prolific in her, 50-odd years. And sometimes, as we know, dying young actually just kind of solidifies your fame, doesn't it? Well, look at someone like Caravaggio. I mean, he dies young, and so I'm not sure. I think it probably does go back to gender discrimination. It was the case with Impressionists. They kind of, broadly speaking, broke down into two groups, I think. There were those that came from relatively wealthy backgrounds, which gave them a foot up. And being somewhat independently wealthy allowed them to basically paint how they liked and what they wanted.
Yeah.
And I would include Manet in that, for example. There are others who were dirt poor and just stuck to their principles, despite having barely a sou. Small. The smallest of French coins, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Pissarro was one. Monet initially was very, very poor until he started selling. Of course, Van Gogh, post-impressionist, if you like, but famously poor, although supported by his brother.
Oh, yeah.
So Berthe Morisot, what I know of her background is that she actually was fortunate with her parents, and was doubly fortunate because they were relatively well off, and doubly fortunate because they supported her and her sister in their desire to be painters. And I believe even built a kind of studio for them, and didn't feel this is not something that girls should be doing.
No.
And that's obviously highly significant. And I'm always interested in the relationships between the Impressionists, between the Monet and the Manet and the Cézanne and the Renoir, because again, it's an easy thing to fall into, just kind of lumping them all together. They're very different personalities,
right? And
I love the fact the more you get to know them, the more you realise, each one would have had a different relationship with the other.
Do you think they all got on?
No, they admired each other, and they enjoyed going to the cafes and other environments and talking about paintings. But they had their disagreements, and Manet doesn't exhibit in the Impressionist exhibitions. Cézanne, it's a bit of an apocryphal story. It's a bit exaggerated, but when he came up from Aix-en-Provence, he didn't shake hands with, I think it was Monet, because he said, I haven't washed for 3 days, I haven't washed for 4. And they found Cézanne with his provincial accent a bit odd and a bit rough.
Okay.
They all seem to like Pissarro, kind of genial, slightly older one of the group.
I bet they're probably really super competitive as well.
It's one of those things, isn't it? Being competitive and supportive and influenced and influencing. But within this group, you have 2 key women, really. There is a third, Bracquemond, but there's 2 key women. Bert Morisot being one, and then the American artist, Mary Cassatt, who's really interesting. And in fact, we're in the middle of making, no, it's not true. We've just started making a film about her.
And then we need to do another painting. We need to do one person.
We do. And just on Mary Cassatt, it's significant that the National Gallery of Art, Washington, consider her within the French school. So they consider her a French Impressionist.
Oh.
All other American galleries, to the best of my knowledge, have her down as an American artist.
Yeah.
So these categories can become quite important. And there's an interesting link there, because the painting that you chose is actually at the National Gallery of Art in Washington.
Another trip?
Another trip. Well, actually, I'm going there in a week.
No.
Funnily enough.
Oh, come on, Phil.
But
so you're going to see that one?
Well, I just noticed, looking at it online, it's not on display.
Oh.
Which I found very odd, because I think it's great. So what made you... I'll get it back up on our screens, and hopefully...
Oh, yeah, what made me choose it?
You guys listening, if you're not out running, walking, or trying to get to sleep...
Trying to get to sleep. They'll be off by now.
I do that. Do you know what? I've listened to the same book so many times, because I put it on a 15-minute thing. Literally, in 30 seconds, gone. But anyway...
If people do drop off to sleep, maybe they could write a little review and say... This is going really well, thank you.
It really helps.
I'm getting the best night's sleep I've ever had.
Look, all publicity is good publicity.
We aim to please. Why did I pick it? I'll tell you why you're finding it anyway. It reminded me of when Barkham Mills. Did you ever go there when you were younger? I'm sorry that people listening in America and things like that, but...
Well, you need to explain what Barkham Mills is.
A really lovely pub called The Anchor at Barkham Mills, and you could, when we were children, you could get boats, and I think you still can, and you go up and down the river, and we used to have a little picnic. But as always, there's always geese.
Was there?
Geese they're trouble. I don't know who gets on with geese. They are, if there's food about, and I've just spent 3 days in Oxford walking down the river to go to the city each day, and whenever there was bother, it was the geese. And it just made me laugh when I saw the geese. So I thought, oh yes, a beautiful scene, but there they are, and they're going to be causing trouble if you've got any food at all.
So that's absolutely brilliant, because that's all this painting needs to do.
Yes.
It just triggers memories, and it makes you laugh, because you remember being chased by geese or losing your cucumber sandwich to a goose.
I love my food. I don't want to lose it. But I just remembered that as well with my mum and dad. We used to go there quite a lot. It was a big thing. And it's definitely still there.
Oh, it is?
Yes, they do lots of weddings and things. I looked it up,
I mean, pre-COVID, it was definitely... people used to go there. I've got friends who wild swim.
Oh.
And that's where they would go.
Yes.
It's one of the few rivers you can safely swim in.
Yeah.
And we used to go there a few years ago now. I remember once going there, and it's quite near Glyndebourne Opera House. And one of the singers had rented one of the rooms upstairs. So you'd be outside the pub, having a drink, and somebody would be upstairs. He'd be upstairs. On this one occasion, he was practicing his
Oh, that's
singing
lovely.
his aria, and then the people drifting past.
No, that's lovely. Oh, I like that.
Fabulous scene.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one of the appeals, I think, of the Impressionists, is that many of their paintings, either completely or superficially, just have that feeling of, they've escaped the city, which, bear in mind, could be very uncomfortable, particularly in the summer. It's really hot. I mean, if you look at people's biographies, then, Chopin and his partner, Georges Sand, they would get out of, Paris was too uncomfortable, so they'd go to their country, to Nohant, where they had a house, or she had a house. Or Beethoven, people sometimes misunderstand Beethoven in Vienna, and they say he moved a lot. But many of those moves are in the summer. It's just too hot in the city. So they didn't have air conditioning. There's no, So getting out of Paris, which of course was much smaller at the time, and going to these beautiful scenes of the Seine.
And it is a lovely thing, isn't it? Getting in a boat. It is a funny thing. Yeah. You get in. It's like a perfect day out.
But also for an artist, it's a very. We've just finished a film called The Danish Collector, and it's coming out at the end of this year, 2021. And we interview a Danish artist,
right,
called Tal R. And one of the things he says, which is very interesting, he talks about the madness of painting waves.
Okay.
And he says it's just the most absurd thing. I mean, there's no moment when the wave is still.
No.
You're trying to capture something which is gone in a blink of an eye, and it's extremely difficult to paint and capture. But as an artist, you're constantly drawn to it. I think what's always appealing to an artist, and to the Impressionist artists, of course, is that the water gives it that movement. It allows you to introduce essentially whatever colour you like, because you can just claim it's the sky, but basically blue. So it can cut in any way you like across the picture, but in this case, it's dividing the picture into thirds. It gives a background to the foreground trees, otherwise they'd be against green. I mean, it's just a great device. Those two people on the boat. I think it's more exciting in the sense that they're in the boat rather than just sitting on a picnic blanket.
Her paintings are lovely, aren't they? Because there's not a massive amount of detail almost. No. They're just so, I just think it's just such like perfect day out. And then when you look at some of her others, they've always got that probably like a delicate touch. They do look different.
I think she actually technically is really, really adept, and actually is pushing things in some ways further than some of the other artists.
Oh, okay.
And maybe that's also why people aren't quite as drawn to her, because some of hers are starting, you're starting to have to work a little bit harder to identify. Not so much, but on the surface level, there's less detail in those trees. You don't quite see the characters in the boat are not quite as well formed as they would be if it was Manet. Certainly not Renoir, certainly not Cézanne.
No.
Well, actually, Cézanne's not a good example.
Well, you can hardly see the second one, the second person in the boat.
And I think viewers are often a bit lazy, so they want immediately to get it. Actually, if you have the opportunity on your screens, or you have other ways of seeing this painting, just look. Just even with a magnifying glass or however you want to do it, just look really closely. We'll try and do it here. She's not letting me.
No. The normal technical hiccups that we have.
We don't have technical hiccups.
Oh, okay, fine. I definitely do. I'm happy to admit that.
But wherever you look, it's so clever.
And lovely colours, the beautiful colours. I love them. Really, really stunning. And in the background, is that another boat behind, or is that just the water?
It seems to me like it's a single boat.
Yeah.
To the right of the it almost looks like you've got an older chap sitting. But the more you look at it,
Oh yeah, I didn't even see it.
the more you look at it, the more realistic it becomes in a way. It's quite a, probably not helping much by being at the front of the boat, slowing it down, but they're in no rush.
No.
Quite a large chap, I assume. One of those big round hats. The person actually rowing is half the size, and I would imagine, I'm starting to guess here, maybe his son.
Yeah. There isn't a lot of detail there at all.
Or it could be, it's Bert Morisot. Maybe she's making the point. Maybe it's a woman rowing.
Yes.
But
she was really...
Sorry, what we're talking about, he's at the back of the boat, isn't he? Because she's got her back to the bow.
We were talking about this earlier, though. She was really, really good friends, wasn't she? Became really good friends with Manet.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I think I don't know whether she did appreciate it or not. I think he might have got a little bit involved in some of her paintings. Might have come around and decided to put something into some of them or something. So I think there are some questions about that. I'm not sure about this one, of course. But
I mean, it'd be implausible to imagine that these painters weren't in each other's studios making suggestions. And certainly that conversation is had about Degas and Cassatt. And there's one painting I remember we filmed in conservation at the National Gallery of Art where conservator was saying, look, you can see at the top here where Degas has actually redrawn. He's redrawn the top of the painting, making a specific point for Cassatt. She became really quite close with Edouard Manet. They met. It's a nice story. So she had this interest in art. She had the backing of a relatively, well-off family. And I guess maybe contacts help, whatever. She becomes a copyist at the Louvre.
Okay, it's a nice job.
It's a very nice job. And so what she's doing, and it tended to be a job for women, young women, doing copies of paintings which are then sold to the public.
Oh, okay.
Whereas today you would buy a poster. Well, obviously, they couldn't really do that. I suppose there was a form of printing if they wanted to. But anyway.
So she bought a painting in the gift shop.
So you go to the... Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Now, it's great for an aspiring young artist because I guess they might be told which paintings to copy because these are the popular ones. But still, they're going to be copying different styles.
They can't do my favourite one, can they? Wedding of Cana.
No, maybe she...
I might come out with that under my arm.
Yeah, I wonder if they always did it to scale, or whether they do smaller versions. It's a good question.
I don't know.
Anyway, what you also had, and recently was a bit of a fuss here because I think the National Gallery London tried to stop people doing this, but aspiring artists would also go into these galleries and would copy. And I don't think there's an artist that we've made a film about that didn't do that. So Picasso would go in and he'd spend a day copying a Velázquez. In fact, if you go to the fantastic Picasso Museum in Barcelona, you can see his copies of a Velázquez, of a Goya, or whatever, and of a Van Gogh. But by copying, and they're really looking hard and they're trying to work out, it doesn't mean they want themselves to paint like Velázquez, but it's like if you want to be a great musician and you learn to play like all sorts of different musicians.
Yeah.
And it all kind of filters in and you decide what you don't want and what you do want. So artists, Van Gogh, he's often misread as this kind of crazed guy who just slopped paint about. It's just nonsense. He studied the history of painting extremely carefully. And he would go to galleries and he'd stand there and he would paint and he would copy. Manet was so important for Manet to get down to Spain to look at the great Spanish painters, which didn't tend to travel that much, the Velázquez and the Goyas and the Riberas. And then when there was an exhibition of Spanish painting at the Louvre, was a huge success, not least amongst kind of Parisian painters who went to have a look. If you imagine you're a painter and you see a Goya for the first time or a Velázquez for the first time, it's like, oh my Lord.
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen either, so I can't wait. I'm going to have to be getting on flights everywhere at this rate, Phil.
Yep, your next 10 years are all taken care of. But then, of course, what you can then see, when then you see how this is influencing their paintings. You can see it in Manet really clearly.
Mm.
So young Bert Morisot is in the Louvre doing some copies, and up walks this young chap called Edouard Manet.
Oh, yeah.
And says, hello, that's not bad. So they become friends. And how close is slightly unknown, but they certainly became very friendly, and their shared passion for art fueled that friendship. She ultimately, Edouard Manet, if I'm correct, he was actually married at the time.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
And she didn't particularly like his wife.
Oh, okay. She ends up marrying Edouard Manet's brother.
Mm.
And they have a daughter called Julie who lives till 1966.
That's amazing. Isn't it?
So she's born. She dies after I'm born. I know that'll be a shock to everyone listening.
Same as me.
who are shouting out, no, you've got the decade wrong, surely.
Bill, come
you
on.
mean 1973? We've seen your picture. I know.
Airbrushed.
It's from airbrush. I'm using an old picture.
Doesn't everyone do that? Come on. Anyway.
There's a very, very beautiful picture of Bert Morisot, where she's kind of dressed in black.
Mm.
She looks absolutely. That's just a great self-portrait, I think. But again, so with this picture, it could be as simple as she just wants to experiment, see how broken the strokes can be, how non-realistic the scene can be, and yet still convey exactly the scene.
Yeah. That actually would be a really hard painting to copy. Don't you think?
Well, when you get in close,
yeah,
then it is so many small dabs.
Yeah. And going back to your copying story, that would just feel like I would really struggle.
Yeah.
Not that I'm an artist that's going to start painting.
No, it'd be really hard.
It really would. It's so, the way the trees are and the sort of fading and those sort of blurry bits. It's beautiful. Really tricky.
Look, I reckon in the background there, I'm guessing, but I don't know. I can say there could be somebody walking through the trees. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe.
Was she known for not doing so much detail?
I think she was known for trying to. She wasn't copying any of the others. She wasn't copying Manet. She wasn't copying Monet. I think that when you look at her paintings, they feel like she's pushing it. She's almost like on the path towards a Cézanne in some ways.
Yeah.
Where, they're all it's interesting. They all at different times and in different ways they explore impressionism. Then some of them start to get a bit frustrated by it and want to go in different directions. Renoir for one, Cézanne another. Even Pissarro kind of starts where it almost feels a bit too constraining, and they want to move on.
Yeah. Maybe if she'd have lived longer as well, though, she might have done something similar.
Yeah.
I don't know. You don't know, do you?
Was she 52 or something?
54.
54.
Which is, it's tragic, really. I know it was back in those days. There wasn't the...
She catch?
I think she caught pneumonia from her daughter. She was nursing her. And then caught, pneumonia and died, really, really sad. I think she would have gone on to do so much more. I'm
surprised it hasn't been more singular exhibitions about her work. I think there was one at the Barnes, not so long ago, perhaps. I'm not aware. It's an interesting thing, actually. If a painter is slightly less well-known or respected, then there may be less of his or her paintings in a public institution and more in private collections.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So let's assume that might be the case with Bert Morisot, and I think I have read somewhere that half of her pictures are in private collections. That, of course, does make exhibitions a bit harder to put on, because it's not a question of contacting 10 or 20 public institutions who are always lending to one another, because they know they're going to have an exhibition of something in a year or two that they need to borrow from you. So there's just this exchange going on. Private collectors, it's you've really got to impress upon them. Yeah. You got to convince them to lend their painting. They might be scared of what could happen to the painting. They might just want to keep it so they can look at it for themselves.
There'd be loads of issues. I mean, wouldn't you feel that if someone was coming along to take it off of your wall?
I would be nervous. I would be
really nervous.
Because I did have this conversation with someone recently where he's agreed to lend a painting.
Oh.
And they said, well, how much should we insure it for? And he said, actually, it's pointless asking me that question, because there is no figure that would replace the irreplaceable.
Oh. So are you still going to borrow it?
No, not me.
Oh. I was like, no, Phil. You're already getting me nervous then. Okay, fine. I thought this was you.
No, a gallery putting on an exhibition.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I must admit, yeah.
But I was thinking to myself, well, if you're running the risk of losing the irreplaceable... Actually, no, sorry, I asked him. I said, well, if you're running the risk of losing the irreplaceable, why are you lending it? And he said, well, I feel it's a painting that should be seen.
Yeah.
And when the conditions are right and I'm asked in the right way and the narrative of the exhibition seems substantial enough, then I will lend it. She's very magnanimous of him, frankly.
I think so, for sure.
I mean, there's no financial benefit to him.
No. Just imagine, though, I'd just be so nervous.
Oh, yeah.
But the irreplaceable is just things that, I've got something of my mum's. It's just a little tiny plastic red bird. And she used to whistle it in Montreal. She used to tell me about it. And it's probably, it's just ridiculous. But if anything happened to it, I would be really mortified.
Yeah.
So, that's irreplaceable.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay.
So that may be why there have been fewer exhibitions. I mean, it's also... You get into this kind of cycle where, the Danish collector film that we've just made about an extraordinary collection, the Ordrupgaard collection just outside Copenhagen. I understand why the Royal Academy called it Gauguin and the Impressionists,
right,
rather than the Ordrupgaard collection, because it will get more people to see it.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And, galleries now, where money is always an issue, where they need footfall, if they've got a choice between a Manet exhibition or a Morisot exhibition, they probably think to themselves, actually, Manet's...
I think they might do a combination now.
Well,
I think it might be because of the gender thing as well. I think they actually might do a combination.
Well, in Basel, there's an exhibition right now which is about female artists.
Uh-huh.
I think there's 7, and that includes Morisot and Cassatt and Carlo. And if travelling wasn't such an issue, I'd go to see that one.
God, it doesn't seem to be that much of an issue for you, Phil.
Oh, it's a pain. No, really.
Come on.
No, I've only done 2 trips, and they're both absolute pains.
Every time I try to see you, it's, no, I'm sorry, Laura, I'm in Rome. Okay, fine. Where are you, Laura? Oh, I'm in Oxford.
I'm up in Oxford.
Oxford is lovely. I had the best time.
Don't knock Oxford.
No, I'm not knocking it. I love it. But Copenhagen, yes, I'd like to go. So, okay.
Yeah, so...
Sorry, Phil.
No, so...
I've made you lose your train of thought.
No, I was just... But But I think the galleries might be wrong in that, they put on a Morisot exhibition. They might find that actually they did get.
I think they really, really would.
Yeah.
I think people are much more interested as well in seeing new things as well. More diverse. I mean, there really are. There's got to be more interest now in seeing so many different things.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true.
Okay.
Honestly, I mean, I know with our films, I've mentioned before on the podcast, we tried to create the brand so that, irrespective of the artist, we get the same amount of people coming.
Right.
And I'm sure NT Live does the same, and the Met Opera do the same, whereby, because they both, I mean, the last Royal Opera House live screening I saw was such high quality. The NT screenings are such high quality. In theory, you should go to any of them because then you know they're going to be high quality, irrespective of whether you know the play or the opera.
Right.
That's not how it works. So people still think, oh, Marriage of Figaro, I like that opera, I'll go and see it.
Okay.
So we're trying to create a brand of exhibition on screen, and we get such fantastic feedback. So we do a Van Gogh, we get good figures.
Yeah.
And the next one out of the blocks is Bosch, or Munch, or even Hockney. And it's like, why is that half? Why have you done half the figures on that one? And it's just the name.
Yeah.
And that's, I think.
What about people studying? When you're studying for a degree or history of art, which is clearly something I have never really been involved with before, they would always stick with the same name. So therefore, there's always those sort of people maybe as well. You've always kind of got those core people that will watch it because they're studying as well.
Well, I think there's I think that in all fields. But there's a reason why Mozart and Beethoven, Chopin and Haydn get played a lot, because they are unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly.
And there'd be a reason that other composers might not get played so much because they're not necessarily as good. I get that. But, you've got to explore other composers, other artists, other writers. You can't keep... I mean, ideally you want people to read the greats, but also...
Have a bit of the... When we did the Otto Dix podcast, we both were like, oh, this is amazing.
That's a very good example.
I would be rushing to an exhibition now if that came out. And
even with Bert Morisot, I'd not seen this painting before.
No. And
this prompted me to look at her work again. Some I knew, some I didn't. That's great.
Yeah. It's lovely.
If I had more time, I would absolutely like to read her biography. We are about to do a film about Camille Pissarro, so she'll pop up in that again. And we are doing, as I mentioned, a film about Mary Cassatt, and so she'll definitely be involved in that. And I think basically we'll the next time there's a big exhibition, it will be a great opportunity actually to do a film about her.
Yeah.
But as always, I think it's one of those. It's just pause and have a look at the picture. When it first comes up, particularly if you're kind of just going through a lot of pictures, you might feel a little bit too abstract, a little bit too blurry, and it doesn't seem that interesting. But then you just need to stop and actually have a really good look. And artist or non-artist, imagine yourself plonking your easel down by the side of the river and trying to capture that scene. And again, as we've talked about, she's being, the positioning of the trees and the geese and the boat. It's not a snapshot. It's not a photo. It's all done very carefully.
Those three all together would be fighting.
The three geese all next to each other, looking at the boat. Again, you come down to the left, and that goose on its own. You hit that little tree. That little tree might not have even been there, but you need it in the picture because you go up the line of the trunk, or the thin trunk. Hit the tree. The tree takes you across the water, so it just tips to the bank on the other side. hit the first tree. The first tree's smaller than the tree in the middle. So again, that throws you to the right. The next tree's smaller again, so it throws you down. Get down to that little tiny tree, and where are you going to go? And in fact, if you look behind the boat, where she might argue she's just kind of showing some ripples and stuff, but it's she's used some white paint there. Again, it's drawn your eye back to the boat, back to the geese. And then this time when you come round, I would think you'd probably go from the second or third geese up the oar.
Oh, yeah.
And then you might have a closer look at whether it's a young woman or a young boy. It's hard to tell, really.
It's fascinating.
I mean, the guy at the back, he's a big lad.
He's not. He doesn't really do. I'm not sure about him.
Actually, when you look at it, that's.
I need my glasses on. I put them on. I take them off. I can't work him out at all.
It's almost like this is the world of COVID, because if you look really closely,
I can't even see what he's sitting on though.
Well, he's sitting on the very back.
Yeah.
So there's his thighs. He's got big kind of coat on, holding his hands up, but he seems to have like a material around his face, and just sunglasses and a big hat. The more you look at it, the more it kind of looks like a rapper out of the Bronx.
Sorry,
really.
where did you say this painting was? We need to look at this one in the play.
No, it's not on display.
Oh no!
At the National Gallery of Arts.
It is weird. I hadn't noticed until now.
Oh no! Hold on. This is interesting. Look, I've now got into the close-up. Ah, well, see, that's interesting. When you go into the close-up,
which is what yes. With our lovely technology.
So I've just got to move that for a second. So let's have a closer look at the chap. Well.
Now I don't even think it is now.
Isn't that interesting? So when you're going close, it completely breaks down.
Oh.
Okay, so that little... So in case we've lost you all, if you're going really close to the man, we assume it's a man, sitting on the back of the boat. And it's interesting because our eyes have been putting this together.
Well, I've not been putting it together very well, Phil, quite frankly.
Okay. But when you're going close, so that little splodge of red there, I'd assume was a shoe, but actually must be on the wood of the boat. But above that, you've got two vertical splodges of blue. Technical term, splodge.
Obviously. Well, to be fair, I'm happy with those terms.
So that must be the shins of that person. He's obviously got very long legs.
Oh, I completely got this wrong.
So that's the shins.
Okay.
Okay, legs coming back here.
I thought the blue was another person. I've gone completely wrong. So it just goes to show you.
Well, I don't know. I think that the sweeping motion there, for me, that's somebody in a big coat wrapping themselves around.
Where is she when we need her?
And it's funny because actually the head, when you're going close, it's the strangest thing.
I'm not even sure about this, Phil.
Do you think that's even a person?
No. I think that there's two ladies on the boat. And I don't think that's a person at all.
Oh my God.
I'm not actually sure what that is at all.
So maybe it's just the swirling water.
Yeah, but it is a bit of a swirl. It's almost like someone's gone past in a jet ski.
Because that person is twice the size of the person rowing. Oh, look at that. All right, so the person in orange is definitely somebody rowing with a yellow hat. Oh, so you think that person in blue...
I thought that was a person.
...is another person, because they are the same size. Well, it just goes to show you need to look at these things carefully.
But we did have a chat beforehand, and I said to you, I was looking at another one of her paintings where there was a slide. It's called The Garden Chair, 1882. And I watched a lecture, and the woman was saying about the watering can in that painting that just looks really out of place. So if anyone else wants to have another look at another painting, and like I said, Manet was known to come along and do things, so maybe they had a bit of an argument.
Well...
He's come along.
Maybe he's come along and put... I mean, actually, now Now it's the size of an Easter Island statue. It looks absurd. Now I'm looking at it closely. It's complete nonsense.
We just need to.
But this little square. So basically, from the oar. If you go in really close to this picture and you've just got the oar and the woman in orange, look at the. This is why, I don't know. Other artists were not going this far. So underneath the boat, little strokes of colour.
Yeah.
Blues and greens and purples and pinks and whites. Above, much, darker. To the right of the boat, where I was misjudging that as a person, you got blues and, an incredible kind of mix of colours.
But it is sort of out of place.
It is sort of out of place.
Because it doesn't flow.
I don't quite...
With the watermarks that she's making.
No, we've
got really into this now.
It's an eddy that doesn't quite... And actually the second person, frankly, the person who I thought that was the shins of the big man... And now it looks like it's a short woman with no lower body at all.
It looks like she's in the water now. I really do think we may need to go and get an extra cup of coffee and
that must be the
cake.
hat. No wonder she's rowing fast because her friend's gone through the bottom of the boat. It's funny, isn't it?
It is funny, actually. So it's actually quite funny that we've noticed it right in the middle of... But in actual fact, that's lovely because the whole idea is we're discussing a painting. Yeah. If we were actually in front of it, we would have spent
there's the geese. But the thing about this is I'm maximum close as I can get. And so doing little boxes from within the painting. And frankly, wherever I stop, I think to myself, I'd have that on my wall. Just the
part of it.
Just the mix of like I've now lost the boat entirely. I'm just looking at the trees and the top half.
It's lovely. It's beautiful.
And the beautiful detail. It's not detail, but the beautiful way in which that middle tree, the trunk is done with kind of purple and a bit of orange. And
it's so gorgeous.
She's doing this en plein air, so she's outside. She's probably got people chatting to her as they walk past, and maybe as a woman they're making comments, and maybe she's, the sun means that the paint isn't I don't know, melting, or it starts to rain. Who knows? But actually, it's the most extraordinary. Oh, look, that is a person. I was right.
On the other side of the bank.
To the left, with the two. That's a person there with really two brown legs and a kind of white cloak on.
It's amazing her lack of detail that makes it from a distance. We did pick up on it.
It's unbelievable. So when you get close to this picture,
when you get close into the trees,
they're amazing.
Yeah, they are. They're beautiful. She has got a really lovely touch. So definitely got to go to one of her exhibitions.
Because
there is one.
She exhibited in the salon, and then after a few years, I think encouraged by Manet, she said, "I've had enough of the salon."
Oh yes, didn't she go?
So she then exhibited with the Impressionists on the the Impressionist shows, and again, that man Durand Ruel pops up because she sold some paintings to him. He was such an important guy. So glad we made a film about him. Wonderful, really. I don't know actually if we've actually cleared anything up for anybody today. Well,
so comments.
But hold on a second. Look at the title. What's the title of the painting?
Girl in a boat with geese. Oh, you're saying there's now only one.
Girl in a boat. So it's not couple in a boat. It's not even two girls.
Well, it's definitely not girls in a boat with a big man.
But that. Do you know what that is? I tell you.
Oh, okay, come on then.
Aladdin. It is, isn't it? You know
Oh, really?
What's the password?
I actually don't think we're going to be allowed in to any exhibition.
We're not.
We would have stood in front for this one for ages.
We're not treating it enough respect. But hold on, that.
Oh, I'm treating it with respect. I love it.
I don't believe that second character is not. I don't think that's just water.
No.
I think it is girls.
But you're right. It is saying girl. Okay, well, so basically we've brought up more.
I think we may have been the first to realise that girl in a boat is actually girls in a boat.
With Aladdin.
And I'm going to get on to the National Gallery of Art
and have
right
a
now.
Word. Okay. I'm sure that anyone was trying to get to sleep is definitely well off now.
But that at the back there, look at those arms. They are folded arms in a big cloak. Girls in a boat.
With Aladdin.
And geese, we think. Right, we better do something sensible next week.
Yes, indeed.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Painting of the Week podcast. For more information, please visit our website at seventh-art.com or contact us by emailing info@seventh-art.com. See you next time.